what advice would you give to somebody that maybe they want to make a change? They want to achieve a goal, they want to get fit. Where's the best place to start? I wondered whether or not we could delve into some of the biggest trends that are happening right now in the kind of performance and wellness space. Like, what are people actually talking about?
Welcome back to the PerformWell Podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're looking for performance and wellness optimization so that you can not only smash your career, but also have a better life, better relationships, and better health. We believe that performance and wellness are yin and yang and work together. So listen in as we dive into topics that are going to help you optimize your life for the better.
Welcome to The Business with Matt Treviss on Southampton's VoiceFM. From startups to established companies, I'll be bringing you a variety of guests and experts from the incredible business community right here in Southampton. And today I'm very excited, I know, every week, but we're joined by Nick and Dan, the creators of the PerformWell Podcast. And with years of experience in personal training, I think it's fair to say they share expert insights on performance and wellness. And they'll also be sharing their journey, balancing hands-on training with growing their online podcast and their online presence. Nick and Dan, welcome to the studio. How are you guys?
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Oh, do you know what?
Doing
Super
well.
excited. We've had this date in the diary for a little while. And Nick, we had a chat earlier in the week and you were telling me about all these amazing things that you guys are getting up to with the PerformWell podcast. I think it's fair to say it's gone from strength to strength, excuse the pun. We want? Should we kick off?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's kick off. Nick, let's start with you. Do you want to just give us a bit of an insight about the PerformWell podcast and what listeners can expect with each and every episode?
Well, luckily, the PerformWell Podcast is actually what it says on the tin. It's about performance and wellness, hence why the PerformWell Podcast. Now, this podcast was initially named You Know What because me and Dan just wanted an excuse to chat a lot of You Know What. And that is what it was called, actually, quite funny enough.
Is that how it started?
It was actually called You Know What. Is that You Know What? And then we realised that there's a lot of entrepreneurs just like us that are struggling. They're working their ASS off all the time, not getting time for themselves. And we wanted to create a platform to help those people.
Yeah. And so that's the plan. Every week they listen in and you guys delve into different topics, yeah?
Yeah. Performance and wellness focus. So what was the last one we did? Starvation mode?
Starvation mode, yeah.
Yeah. So we're trying to break the myths of starvation mode. Can you eat carbs after 6 p.m? Does water make you fat? Can I just eat air in order to lose weight? That is what we cover. We try and cover all those myths with the obviously expectation that an entrepreneur is going to be working a lot of hours every day. And we are just there to show that you can look after your body and you can then also run your business better because of it. Yeah,
love that. I love the premise for the show. I want to delve into what inspired it, but I just wanted to delve into some of your backgrounds. Nick, Dan, let's head on over to you because obviously you're both successful personal trainers, right? But Dan, what's your background?
So my background initially was all in the field of sports. It's always been sports, always played sports throughout the years. I'm funnily enough not from Southampton, so I'm a bit of an invader.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm not from Southampton. I'm actually a little village called Freckenham, near Bury St Edmunds. And it's honestly, it's so weird and surreal living in the city now, coming from a village of like 200 people. Like for me, even wandering around, I see a couple of police cars. I'm like, this ain't normal. We saw like one a month. But then I started to kind of move into the world of the kind of performance and well-being space. Went to university and studied sports and exercise science degree, which was really, really good. Really enjoyed it. And unfortunately, I was over in Portsmouth. But yeah, I didn't get into Portsmouth. I blame Southampton Uni there. I didn't get into Southampton Uni. So next best thing, eh? So yeah, ended up over there. And then I went into being a personal trainer straight out of lockdown. And actually, it was probably one of the most tough experiences of my life, coming in as a graduate and then going into a field that was quite saturated to begin with after lockdown. And post-COVID, it was that weird limbo where people, did they want to go to the gym where there's lots of people? Did they not want to go to the gym because they want to kind of stay safe at home? It was that big, it was really difficult and it was really challenging. I don't know if you guys remember from when the boxes used to be in the gyms, when you had the white outlines.
Back in COVID.
Yeah, back in COVID. And we as PTs were not allowed to step in those boxes. So if you've got someone doing like dodgy form, you couldn't go in and physically correct them. It was a case of kind of instructing with words and kind of just articulating however you could through body movement. It was so hard. So hard. And then I met this lovely chappie. And it was, we started to build up the relationship we have now. We've got our business, and then we have the podcast as well, which has really helped to grow along the line, which has been absolutely fabulous, and it's going from strength to strength.
That's the first time you ever said lovely chappie to me. I'm glad for that.
What a compliment.
Yeah.
So you both got sport and science degrees.
That's true. I mean, I'm similar to Dan in the fact that I'm not from Southampton. As you can tell from my posh accent, I'm from the town of Berkshire, near Windsor. I was actually born in Ascot, to be fair. But then as soon as I was born, I was shuttled off to Bracknell, which is not quite Ascot in terms of its loveliness. But I did join the military as a reservist as my first kind of career move after university, and one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. But the thing that called me was being a personal trainer. And so soon after I did reserve service in Signals, Royal Marine Reserves, etc. Ended up in lovely Southampton, Solent. And that's why I'm here, unfortunately.
And you've stayed ever since?
Oh, mate, it's beautiful. I can't lie. Apart from the rain every now and then, it's probably the sunniest part of the UK. So I definitely chose the best place. And then met this lovely chappie in Pure Gym. You know, after probably my 5th gym visit in terms of 14 years as a PT. But then we headed off and decided, let's go do something, created Coaching Lab, and we're here now with you.
Love it. I absolutely love it. So at some point then you guys said to one another, let's start a podcast. What was the kind of moment of inspiration? You know, why do that? Did you spot a gap in the market? Like, what's the why?
I think really, like, we knew we had the knowledge to take it forward, and building a podcast was an easy way for us to create content for people out there, and it gives a baseline understanding between who we are as well. And I think it helps to show the relationship that we both have at that point in time, because fundamentally I think a lot of people, and there's a lot of performance and wellbeing podcasts out there, you know, Rangan Chatterjee to name one, Diary of a CEO does it kind of, even though it received a bit of backlash, but like fundamentally it just gave us this really nice uplift as well, this really nice uplift to kind of bring this easy to kind of, you know, way to digest information as well, much like, you know, yourself on the radio. It's an easy way to digest information.
People can do it on the move, can't they? And in the car, and
exactly. It's lovely, and our podcasts are aimed at that kind of commuter's time, that 20 to 30 minute sweet spot where somebody's sitting in the car going for a run doing something, and it gives that really nice balance.
And to be honest, we just wanted to speak a lot of SIHIT. We just wanted to enjoy ourselves, talk about what we're passionate about, and to be honest, we also wanted to have what Diary of a CEO has. We want to have what Impulsive has. We want to have that, you know, large subscriber base that we can help on a large scale. It's all about impact. Yeah. And we both got that ambition, that drive and desire to be bigger than, you know, what I would say than the average person in terms of what our career is all about. And so the podcast just seems like the best, you know, direction to do that, and it gives you the ability to create content for people and value that you can't do through other means. Because an hour podcast, for example, is a long time, and if someone sits with you for that whole hour and absorbs what you're teaching them, they're going to go away and actually use it, just like someone who watches YouTube versus Instagram reels where they're just scrolling through these 15-second value reels that you don't forget about the next day. Podcast sits with you. Sits with you. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of truth in that, for sure. And you said you've got people getting in contact saying, "Oh, I saw your podcast." You know, that must be quite a surreal feeling because you've created something literally from scratch.
Yeah.
It is really weird. I think the first time that ever happened with me is like when I started doing TikTok post lockdown too. And that was really, really surreal when, you know, you get people turning around to you and be like, really love your podcast, people giving you feedback on your podcast, and it's this level of honesty and understanding you build with it. It's the rapport. And I think the community you build from building a podcast is just second to none in terms of it established community. It just established this really well-rounded community where you're helping people with similar problems. And you're kind of like delving a little bit deeper into those problems as you kind of, you know, prod and probe away each podcast that you bring out. Now, like, I know a lot of podcasts are clickbaity. We try to keep it quite real and quite chilled out because a lot of the time they can be quite intense. Yeah. No one wants intense over information first thing in the morning. You know what? Glenn's making his cup of tea at 10, like, you know, 10 past 6 in the morning. Glenn. Yeah, good old Glenn. And he doesn't want this pure passion fire through it. He just wants this kind of like, okay, I understand what these guys are saying. I'm going to take it on board if I want to take it on board. I don't need to be, you know. Yeah.
I think some podcasts are too serious, and I think some are too jokey. I think we bring a little bit of best of both worlds.
A nice happy medium.
Yeah. Like you want to be entertained, but you also want to learn something. Yeah. And you don't want to have one more than the other because it just becomes too much.
Oh, I love that. Nick, earlier in the week when we spoke, you were like, you guys have set yourself a goal. You were like, we want to be in the top 10 performance and wellness podcasts, not just in the UK, like worldwide. Yeah. Can we just break that down? Like, how are you guys going to get there? What steps are you going to take to achieve that?
So, I mean, I've always got this philosophy of just focusing on, rather than perfection, just getting stuff done and course correcting along the way. So I would love to say I've got a huge plan about how to get there, but I don't.
Course correcting along the way. That's a really cool concept though, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. And that's what we do with our clients. It's like they come in, we will progress check them. We'll say, right, you've lost this much fat today, you've gained this much muscle tone. And then 2 weeks later, then we'll then adjust their, calories, etc., and then try and help them move forward in some way.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. And to be honest with you, I would say one of our biggest plans is to get increasingly more interesting guests each time. And by doing so, eventually we're going to meet even more interesting guests and eventually get to the top 10 in the performance wellness space.
Yeah, I love that. And it's kind of that thing, isn't it? It's that principle of like, don't let perfection get in the way of like good enough. Because you could just spend hours creating the perfect episode, but actually at the end of the day, it's quite nice. The fact it might be a little bit rough around the edges. I'm not saying it is. Like I've watched a couple and listened to a couple, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. But it's wise words, isn't it? Correct. 100%. Yeah.
I always finish a podcast thinking, oh, could have done something better there. But it's like, it is what it is. It's done.
But that's like a gym session, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But what is it they say? Like a gym session's better than nothing at all. I don't know.
Something's better than nothing.
Something's better than nothing. How do you guys decide? How do you guys decide on the topics and the guests? Because I guess you've got your core theme, performance and wellness, but that's quite broad, isn't it?
It is. You really have to knuckle down.
When you've got experience like we've got in terms of, I think you're 5 years as a PT now, right?
5 years.
And I've got 13 years. So when you add up that many years of experience, it just comes to you. It's like more like intuitive.
Yeah.
But honestly, if I'm completely like, let's just say I've got a brain fart, I can't think of anything for a topic, I'll use ChatGPT. I'll go through ex-client questionnaires. I'll talk to people. I'll look at my Instagram, scroll through. It's very easy to get ideas. It's deciding on which one you're going to do and then follow through on. That's the problem.
Yeah. And it's just like you say, it's kind of, it's filling out the topic as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's bulking it all out. I think a lot of the time people think the depth that we go into is, stuff that we've rehearsed. We've got a script, we follow it through. But a lot of it just comes from a lot of repeatability. When, I say I've got 5 years, Nick's got 13 years. It's a lot of repeatability on a day-by-day basis. You go in and work with firemen know how to do their job because they repeat the process, repeat the skill. Same thing we're doing podcasting, and we said this when we first started. We started on Nick's sofa with Rode mics and our tripods, and that was
still on my sofa.
I know we're still on the sofa now, but we've just changed sofas. But like it helps build up over time that kind of level of understanding. And me and Nick are very much, we call it the 1% Club, where you build that 1% each time you're doing it. It's not a case of thinking this is going to be the most glorious podcast ever. Like we've had some absolute phenomenal podcasts that we've come out of that and said that was a great podcast. But then we learn what we did with it. We learn how to take away the lessons that we've learned and ask people for the feedback too.
And to be fair as well, like if you look at our podcast, all of the headings are a answer to a problem that they have.
Yep.
So one is, are you suffering with starvation mode, for example, is a problem that a lot of people think that they have. And it's like, well, this podcast is going to clear that up. And newsflash, it doesn't cause problems. But what we do is we end up trying to find a problem. We turn it into a question and we answer that question on the podcast.
Nice.
That's what we do. It's very simple.
We got loads more topics to delve into, and you guys are going to be sharing some tips, right? That you've maybe picked up along the way when it comes to wellness and performance and getting that work-life balance right. So if there's any busy business owners out there or entrepreneurs that are struggling with any of that, this is the place to be. Welcome back. You're listening to The Business with Matt Treviss on Southampton's Voice FM, and I'm actually delighted to be in the studio with the creators of the PerformWell podcast, Nick and Dan. How are you doing?
Doing well, mate.
Absolutely loving what we're talking about. Of course, your journey really of sort of launching a performance and wellness podcast from the ground up, effectively. Earlier on in part one, you sort of alluded that you've had some pretty interesting people on the podcast as sort of special guests. Who have you had? Who have you had on?
We have had, if you know him, he's the guy who said, "What's your dream?" And that's Simon Scribblenlight. He's now running to, I believe he's got 6 million followers across both Instagram and TikTok now. So he's doing quite well for himself on the follower front.
Yeah.
And he had the #1 performing book across, I think it was across, was it Times best-selling book? I can't remember what it is. It's called "What Is Your Dream?" It's a recent one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had Simon Scribb on there. We've had people like Dodge Woodall, who created the Bournemouth Sevens Festival. Still runs it to this day.
Yep.
We've had ladies on there like Laura Hayter, Anna Hunt, loads of big guests that people will recognise their names, especially from the local area too. But having these guys on, it's such an insight into the world, like such an insight into their world, entrepreneurship, and especially the ways that they decide to run their businesses and how they use their health and well-being.
Isn't it?
All the guys we've got on, they're always that platform for them.
Yeah.
Like, some people might come on and I think that arguably that people judge a book by its cover. They're going, like, oh, you're not a bodybuilder. You're not in the best shape of your life. But these guys are using health and wellbeing to help run their businesses.
Yeah.
And some of the most successful people on the planet as well. And especially Simon out there, you know, he, as I say, with millions and millions of followers, and he's doing God's work at the minute in delivering the service that he's delivering, which is just
to be honest with you, mate, like imagine this, right? Someone with 6 million followers, right? He comes onto your podcast. You've only got 2,000 yourself, 7,000, and you've got this man across you that's got 6 million followers, and you're thinking, damn, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
And he's just a down to earth guy, and you have a chat just like we're having a chat now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, the nerves just go as soon as you talk to someone that's just a chatty person that
Yeah.
actually loves talking to people.
Yeah.
And that's what we love. That's who we love to have on.
How do you approach it? How do you approach selecting guests? Because I mean, there's millions of people that could.
I mean, I said to you before this, we always ask podcast guests, like, is there anyone that you know that would be a good fit?
Yeah.
They have to have some interest in the fitness and health space. Entrepreneurs are fine. We actually find business owners are really, really fun to talk to. And 9 times out of 10, they don't actually look after their health. So we always find that out. And we're like, oh, by the way, did you know you could do this, this, and this? And it does bring a good conversation to the listener.
It's like your perfect audience and your perfect guest all kind of rolled into one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Are there any really memorable moments to some of your previous episodes that have sort of stuck out?
Apart from the first one, which is just obviously always going to be the funnest one.
Yeah. Bit of a learning curve.
Dodge Woodles comes to my mind mostly because
I think
his story about the monkey
Yeah.
he grew up with. So he grew up in a house with a monkey, a parrot, like loads of animals, above a bar.
Oh, wow.
He's the most gift of the gab person you could ever meet. Like
Yeah.
typical London, chats to everyone. And I think, what was it? He said he has 9,000 contacts.
he's got 9,000 contacts in his phone because every person that he meets, he puts in his phone. He says every person is a contact of mine, and every person will help you somewhere along your lifespan. And it's these guys that we've got like Simon Dodge, who, you know, they almost have this kind of overarching, I said guru with air quotes there for the listeners, but like these guru features where, you know, they're not there to preach, they're there just to kind of teach through their own modalities and what they've done and what they've experienced, and all they ever want to see is other people succeed.
Yeah.
Like, of course, they've had their success over the years. They know where they are, they know what to do, and they know how to build a business.
I love down-to-earth people that are not fake.
Yeah.
Right? I just love down-to-earth people that just want to give you down-to-earth advice, and he resembles that very well. Simon Squibb as well, of course. But would there be any others that come to mind?
I think an interesting one. Oh, we spoke earlier about we had Anna Hunt on our podcast, who was a female adult star, and it was really interesting because people think you're coming on there, we're trying to get views for one reason only. We weren't, because actually the conversation I had with Anna prior was, how does fitness and wellbeing delve into your life? Like, what experience you have? Because the thing is as well, for people like that, where it is all about image, how must it feel that all the time they're constantly judged on image? And this is what I think actually pulled the podcast through.
Yeah.
Because people genuinely said it was a great podcast, and not for the reason you think it is. It was a great podcast for solely the fact that we learned some inside information about that industry and how soul destroying it can be for people.
Yeah.
Some of the comments they get, you know, and sometimes they even said the comments that I get are worse from the men than the women. And I just found that, and I sat there, remember talking to Anna about it, and I was like, I'm sorry you get some of those comments. She's like, I've got thick skin now, I'm used to it. But the fact that, you know, you have these conversations with such eye-opening people, I just find it, you know, absolutely fabulous, honestly.
I was reading the bio of the podcast, and there's a bit there that says that you want to help people perform at their best.
Yes.
How do you guys define performing at your best?
I mean, performing at your best is hard to define, I guess, but like performing better than you are now is easier to define. Like if you wake up and you feel rubbish, let's just say someone wakes up, oh, I feel tired today, I feel fatigued. But what if you didn't feel tired? What if you felt okay? That's better than tired. That's performing better than you were before. That's not best necessarily, but that better is all you should be looking for.
Yeah.
It's that progression of where you're at to where you want to become is what we want to help with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
And to be honest, I would love to put in there as well. I read a quote a little while ago, and it was a quote basically saying, do the hard things for an easy life, not the easy things for a hard life. And it's about teaching people that the more hard things you do, it actually makes your life better. It's not a fact of you look at things every single day and go, oh, you know, it's really hard to get out of bed. You know, you shouldn't be waking up on a Monday morning thinking, I'm looking forward to Saturday. That is one of the worst things I've ever heard from clients. Like, I get it. You're laying in bed, you're all comfy and cozy, and you're looking forward to the weekend on a Monday? Like, you've got 5 days still to go, my man. Like, what?
I think everyone's thought that at some point.
Oh, mate, too much.
Oh, I love that. Earlier we were talking about some of the myths that you guys delve into on your podcast. Are there any kind of misconceptions that we can talk about right now that maybe really sort of Dan's nodding. He's like, yeah.
Too many. I mean, look, let's get the myth out there of the carb question, because a lot of people think that carbs make you fat. And a lot of people don't realise
no carbs before marbs.
No carbs before Mars, yeah. No carbs after 6 p.m. or you'll wake up with a muffin top. But carbs are basically glycogen in the body. And carbohydrates will actually hold water, which will hold weight and make you feel like you've gained body fat when actually you've just gained a bit of water weight.
Right.
Like I don't know if we've all done this, but we weigh yourself one morning, you're 2 kilos heavier. You weigh yourself the next day, you're 2 kilos lighter again. That's water weight. It goes up and down. There is no such thing about carbs make you fat. And so that is probably one of the biggest misconceptions I see the most, that I like to clear up with people.
So with that in mind then, how should people treat carbs?
Carbs should be seen as a fuel source above anything else. They should be seen as your kind of partly your day-to-day. Yes, it's, you know what, I find it's easier now with the diet and, you know, and the food industry, how it is. There is an option for everything. Absolutely everything. You know, like the vegan diet has gotten a lot easier to get protein in. That was one thing that was really hard. There's a lot of companies now coming and help with that. But carbohydrates, when you think about them day to day, if you are concerned that carbs are causing your weight gain, it is not the carb itself, it is the amount of carbs you are consuming. And bear that in mind with any food. You could eat just chicken breast and still gain weight, 100%. And you're thinking, I'm getting protein in though. That means I don't gain weight. No, but I guarantee you, if you're going to try and eat 2,000 calories of chicken breast, good luck to you, because you're going to be extremely full. So
Calorie deficit is the thing that I think we're probably all here now, right? I would say that it's largely... went through a phase where it was trending. Now a lot of people know that it's about calories. That's why you see food menus have calories on the food menus now. And it's this thing, right? We need to make sure that our calories are being managed. Just like you're tracking your funds and your budgets for your business to operate, if you do not track your food intake and eat less or eat more depending on your goals, then you're not going to see a change in your body. And I don't think a lot of people like to track their food. A lot of people think that it's a chore, just like saving your money is a chore. Yeah, but you do it for a reason. You do it for an end goal. Yeah. So if you do the same thing with your calories and you make sure your calorie is controlled, you will find your body changes for the better.
It's really frustrating though, isn't it? Like, I'm sure people have been there. I know I have. I've just been on the treadmill, done a 5K, and it's like 120 calories. And I'm like, that's not even a Mars bar. Yeah. What's going on? Yeah. It's consistency, isn't it? Is that also the key?
It's consistency over time, 100%. It's one thing we reinforce, and consistency is bred through habits. And one of the key habits Nick just spoke about there is tracking your food, because I had a conversation with my parents as well, and I was talking about food and losing weight between them. And it's a lovely conversation to have, and I love the fact I can have it with my parents. But we're having a conversation about losing weight and how they do it. And I will say, both of them over 60, looking phenomenal. You'd think they're in their 40s. And the thing is, my mum's going to be sitting there with 30s now. But like, it's the case of like a habit comes in there and you build kind of repetitive habits over the time. In our most recent challenge that we did with Coaching Lab, it's 28-day challenge. We gave every challenger a certain habit to do over that 28 days. Yeah. They reinforce it over that time. By the time you've done 28 days, it's autonomous. You're just thinking about doing it every single day, and it doesn't become like a chore. And you start to see the progress, you start to see the results. And no matter what the excuses are, you can fall back on us, you can fall back on your friends, and you can have those conversations. But it is relentless consistency, and it's something that I've adopted more so in the last 2 years, because the first 3 years as a PT, you're kind of muddling your way through learning the business. But last 2 years, it's learning about relentless consistency and how can you create that in someone's life. You know, whole context of our conversation about entrepreneurs, busy people. I put busy in air quotes because you can always find the time. If that's making your coffee and you've got 2 minutes to do a really, really quick HIIT workout, do it. If you've got your kids climbing over you, see if you can have a conversation with your kids and say, look, Mummy's going to do this workout now. Do you want to join in? Like, burn some energy with the kids. There is always a way around it, but you've got to have that conversation with yourself to take accountability to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, there's a saying, right, that you don't raise to your standards, you fall to your systems. And the point of that is that sometimes we set standards that are unrealistic for ourselves, or we set standards that are a little bit far out of reach, and then because we don't hit it within a week or 2 weeks, we feel like, oh, what's the point? I'm putting all this effort in, my result is nothing. But we always fall back on our habits, our systems, okay? Just like a business has systems, lead flow systems, operations, etc., we also have systems with our body and our habits and our health. And, you know, do we have social time booked in our calendar? One of the biggest things or biggest problems that I see with a lot of people is they don't manage their time very well. They have no time that they're actually going to eat food, meal prep their foods, go to the gym, train, mobilize. They say they've got no time. I then tell them to do their schedule, and then you start seeing all these little gaps. And what are they doing in that time? They're scrolling through Instagram, TikTok, watching dumb videos.
Yeah.
And it's like, mate, if you just took 20 minutes of that here, 30 minutes of that there, you could have the body you want without any extra time.
It's so interesting that you guys have sort of touched on this topic, because like I've spoken to a lot of people in the studio, and this idea of like a default diary has come up a few times, where you sort of block time out.
Yeah.
And it's something that I want to do more of, for sure. Obviously, you're going to get curveballs, aren't you? Bits and pieces. But if you've sort of got that default diary, at least, you know, if you haven't made it to the gym or you didn't do the workout, it's only like you've only missed a day or 2 days. It's not like, oh no, a month's gone by and I've done nothing. Yeah.
If you're only focusing on your business with your calendar, then you're done.
And I bet a lot of people are.
Yeah.
I know I do.
Yeah, calendars are key. They work. And I think one thing that I would like to kind of say there as well, similar to that default diary, traffic light system, your weeks. So you've got red, amber, green, different tiers of what you expect on kind of based on what you can do in a day. A red day isn't a bad day. It's based on how you're feeling the time you have. If you have zero time, say you're doing a 12-hour day, back-to-back, got meetings, calls, everything like that, what can you do? Say a 20-minute walk and just make sure every meal has protein in it. That's it. But then you can feel like it's a success for the day. Because I think the demotivating part for people is people feel like they're being unsuccessful. So then they do 3 weeks of it. They feel like a failure. Gives them 2 months. They contact us. We'd be like, you're all good, son. Crack on.
How much of it, like when you guys are speaking to a new client, or you're putting a training plan together, how much of the conversation is around just getting people to like set realistic expectations from the off?
Most of it. I mean, that first time you speak to a new client is so important to get the expectation set. And sometimes I'm brutally honest with them. I'm like, it says you want to lose 90 pounds in 2 weeks. It's not going to happen. That's never happened, by the way. Yeah. That's ridiculous. But I will sit down to them and we're like, look, it's not realistic. You might be able to do it if you do this, and this. I give them the options, present the options, see what they say. They're a little bit 50-50. And then we start building something a bit realistic. But it's very common.
Yeah, it makes sense. What about, what sort of role does the sort of mental health, wellness, and that sort of dovetails with the physical wellness, and also I suppose the wellness of someone's business as well? They're kind of all these parts, but when it comes to the sort of mental health side, how does that kind of feature in your philosophy?
I mean, it's all linked, first of all.
Yeah, isn't it?
I think a lot of people separate these and leave it separate, but if your physical health is bad, your mental health can be bad. 100%.
Yeah,
100%. The only person that a person in the deathbed is thinking about is, can I get back into a healthy place and do something? No, they're stuck in that position where they can't do anything because their body and their health is deteriorating. So I think they're very, very, very closely linked. And obviously training their body and seeing change and seeing progress, not only in the business builds confidence, but when they see their body, they see the shirt fitting a little bit differently, look in the mirror, they see a little bit of ab definition coming through, or the girl's training booty and suddenly it looks quite pumped in the lighting. And she's like, this is really good. It's actually starting to go in the right direction. If that happens, then obviously they're going to be ecstatic and the confidence is going to build as well. And if you can do that with your body, that confidence will carry through with your business, with your relationships, with your life, in every way possible. It's not just a business is your only way out. Your body is actually another way out as well, and it will help everything else. Yeah.
Well, they say, don't they, the only wealth is health. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
I know 100%. I agree. Well, actually, one saying that I kind of live by is health is a crown worn by the healthy person, seen by the ill. So it's only, you don't, until you have an injury, until you have an illness, you don't sit there and actually value your health. You don't at all. And it genuinely is that way, because the amount of times that I've sat there and been like, I wonder what it'd be like to be ill right now. You get ill, and then all of a sudden you kind of look at that time when you were healthy and you're like, now I know what I was doing wrong during that point in time.
Or I've taken that massively for granted.
Yes.
I want to delve into some of the challenges that you guys have faced along the way, because you are literally building the bridge as you cross it, which I love. What was it? Corrective action? Course correction. Course correction. Yeah. Love that. So don't go away. If you're enjoying this as much as I am, we'll be right back.
Apologies for interrupting the podcast. We know you're getting fully engrossed into this episode, and we really appreciate you stopping on the video on YouTube or on Spotify if you found us through one of the search pages. Make sure to leave a review and a subscription if you haven't already. But we just wanted to interject a point here that me and Nick have 15 years of coaching experience between us, and it's only getting better as we've got better guests on the podcast. The only way we can do that, though, is with the growth of our program that we've just released. We've got a 12-month Perform Well program, which has just dropped, and we'd love you guys to get involved in it. If you want to learn more details, make sure to head to the description, as we've got our website in there, which can give you a full overlay of the program. We're looking to help career-driven professionals, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and anyone dominate their life by improving their lifestyle. Me and Nick like to claim ourselves as experts in this area, and if you want to check out some of our other transformations, I'm sure you do. We've got some amazing people who have performed so well off the back of this program. Have a cracking day, and we really appreciate your time. Let's get back to the podcast.
I tell you what, I'm learning so much today. I think you guys are so insightful. I think you're wiser beyond your years, if I'm being completely honest.
Thank you so much for that.
I'm soaking it up like a sponge. Anyway, welcome back. We're listening to The Business with Matt Treviss on Southampton's Voice FM. And I'm joined in the studio by Nick and Dan, creators of the PerformWell Podcast. I sort of feel like I'm in the presence of celebrities, to be fair, because you guys have been mixing with some movers. You guys have been mixing with some movers and some shakers. You've had some interesting guests on your show. How many episodes have you done now?
83?
83, yeah.
83, which is absolutely incredible. Are you releasing one every week?
One every week.
Yeah.
This will actually be one as well,
yeah,
for those listening. If you want to come and listen over to PerformWell Podcast on YouTube and then Spotify.
That is absolutely brilliant. Now then, before the break, I suppose, we were just talking about some of the myths, some of the misconceptions around the industry. I wondered whether or not we could delve into some of the biggest trends that are happening right now in the kind of performance and wellness space. Like, what are people actually talking about?
Okay, so I mean, in the performance and wellness space, we're talking like biohacking level. You know, biohacking is very popular trend at the moment.
Right.
And biohacking is a multitude of things. We're talking things like taking cold showers to improve your cold,
good for the nervous system.
Apparently so.
Shock to the system.
Yeah. And that's a trend that I would say is probably on a slight decline at the moment, but it is still a trend. We've got things like infrared, what's it called? Red light therapy.
Red light therapy.
It's supposed to help with your skin. It's supposed to help with your health and your well-being. Meditation's taken a big trend, and that seems to be carrying through nicely. There's so many trends that we can go through.
Yeah.
I think one of the big ones for me, there's one big one in the training space at the minute, which is science-backed lifting really taking like headway. A lot of the people who you're seeing kind of as influencers these days are going and citing studies. And then it's almost like this kind of direct kind of testosterone fuel competition at the minute between each other, who can find the study the quickest, get the information out, and then report some kind of reel or podcast or something on this scientific back trend. Now, a lot of the information from these scientific studies is true, but it's just how it's delivered. And that's the problem we have in our industry, that I always like to call fitness influencers fit influencers, because a lot of the time there's a lot of them everywhere and you tend to catch them. But a lot of the time it does become very, very saturated. And we spoke earlier, the industry is saturated, but it's saturated with the good and the bad. But I feel like a lot of people get very misconstrued by stuff. We had the whole supermarket fury pre-Christmas when everyone was going down supermarkets. I think a lot of people on here are saying, don't eat this, it contains X chemical, this X chemical can kill you. No, not how it works. Because if you eat broccoli, you're not going to faint. So don't worry about that. And it's that kind of stuff that's came through for a long while with a trend. And it is this kind of scientific backside, which is lovely. And it's great that people are coming into the science space. But it's the kind of misconstruing of information that is kind of going across and getting across to people. And I spoke about Dyer, the CEO. They've corrected their ways now, which I think is really good that they have. They cite their studies on the podcast now. So it's not just somebody stating something and then millions of people watching it and going, that must be true. One thing I will say, if anyone here knows the glucose goddess, that's one big trend. She's basically talking about glucose spiking, and I don't know if anyone on here knows like stuff like Zoe. Zoe is about monitoring your glucose at home. Now, a lot of people started monitoring their glucose levels even though they weren't actually pre-diabetic. A lot of people were using that as a way forward to kind of reason with why they weren't dropping weight.
I mean, you're talking about gut health.
Yeah.
You talk about Zoe. I mean, so Zoe's main premise is the gut health. If you fix that, fix a lot of things.
Yeah.
And gut health is a very important topic, and it's something that science is, becoming better at, obviously informing the person in regards to what it can actually, if you improve it, what can actually happen to your well-being. And so it is interesting. I've always been a little bit 50-50 on science. Me and Dan have this conversation a lot. And it's not because I don't think science is important. It's just because science is often proven wrong by new science. And so sometimes you're teaching someone something that is wrong, because later on, a few months later, it's proven that it's wrong. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry I've told you bad information. So I think you've got to couple science with experience and what you learn. I think if you're new in the game, use science, use experience from people above you that have been in the game longer, learn from them, start taking that in, but have a critical mind over science as well as not the gospel for getting the best body you can.
I suppose that thing, isn't it? Like it's becoming, podcasting is becoming more and more accessible. So you don't necessarily have to have all of the experience that you guys have necessarily got in order to start sharing information with people. So I suppose it's that taking some of it with a pinch of salt, isn't it? Really.
100%.
And like you say, backing it up with your own research. Or I was just going to say, it was quite nice, isn't it? Because I suppose anybody that you work with, they might listen to a podcast and they've got the benefit of going, guys, what do you think about this? They've got that person that they can actually speak to.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, let's go on the topic real quickly of like, say, Arnold Schwarzenegger versus modern day bodybuilders like Chris Bumstead, right? Mm-hmm. So Arnold Schwarzenegger was a big guy. He was taking roids, of course. They didn't have the science that we have today, and he still got in phenomenal shape. Yeah. Old school lifting, old school techniques do work. Yeah. Like most of the time it's about taking action. A lot of people don't take action, and that's why you aren't where you want to be. And so the more you can go and course correct along the way and have an open mind to adopting some of the scientific principles that are out there and adopting some of the old school advice, that's how you can join up and become the best. Yeah. I suppose, do you sort of see people, they're trying to get in at the Premier League level and actually they just need to get in at sort of like, local level. I mean, what advice would you give? So somebody that maybe they want to make a change. They want to achieve a goal, they want to get fit. Where's the best place to start?
Reflection, rather than anything else. You have to reflect on where you are now. Realistically, you are not gonna move forward if you don't accept where you are now. And I don't mean that in kind of hoodoo voodoo, that kind of side of things. You have to make an acceptance. Say if you are overweight, you have to accept you're overweight. I know it sounds really, really weird, but a lot of people who are overweight don't accept they're overweight until it's too late, until they've got critical health issues. They're diabetic, they're struggling with coronary heart disease. They don't admit it. They just continue eating and eating and eating and not then going, actually, I'm going to take one day. I'm going to do just a cupboard audit. What have I got in my cupboard today? And then have a look through. If there's loads of processed and ultra-processed foods in there, then they go, actually, maybe I should start making some changes. Swap out, I don't know, the Wotsits for an apple. That kind of small change can then have a massive impact on people's health. Yeah. So starting with acceptance, and then you can start to build on there and start to understand what areas you want to work on. Because a lot of the time, we deal with people who want to be in phenomenal shape and build phenomenal bodies. But the conversation, and Nick came to it earlier, that we have at the start is having the realism. Because a lot of people can sit on social media, and it gets worse and worse every year with social media, especially with AI now, especially the fact can literally taper people's waists on AI at the click of a button, and people have this unrealistic expectation of how their physique is going to look. And it still comes back to years and years. If you remember Biggest Loser put a connotation on certain weight categories. If someone's over 100 kilos, they look like this. If someone's over 150 kilos, they look like this. It's not true. It's not true. Nick's over 100 kilos and he's in great shape. This is what I mean.
Are you really?
Yeah, I am, mate. Yeah, actually.
So it's that kind of thing. It's understanding the baseline premise of why you're doing what you're doing. And then, similar to building a business, what is the reason you want to do it? Is there pain? Is there passion? Have you got that understanding to move yourself forward? If you haven't got a pain point,
let's look on the topic of, like, we are social creatures. Not everything has to be stuck in your head. Okay, talk to someone about what you want to do. If you're running a business, you'll look for a mentor that's done it before you, and then you'll learn from them, and then your business will grow. If you're struggling with your fitness, you'll go to a PT. You'll learn from the PT. Your body will grow. You need to go out there and actually speak to someone about it on a social level. Obese ladies tend to go with the Slimming World, tend to go with the Weight Watchers for that exact reason. It's those organizations don't teach anything magical that we can't teach you, but what they do have is they have community. And so if you can find community, you can find something that helps you stick in the times where you don't feel like you want to follow through with the diet, or you feel like progress isn't going in the direction you want to go. And I feel like we're social creatures. That's probably the best thing you can do, is find someone on your level or wants to do what you want to do. It
definitely gives you that motivation, like going out on a run and it's raining. You think, oh no, but if I know that there's going to be like 10 other people waiting in the car park, I'm going to be there. Yeah. I think the power of community, that's really interesting. Nick, you were saying that the world of sort of PT, it's very seasonal. And how do you guys kind of tackle that?
So, I mean, look, there's loads of industries that are seasonal. We're not just the only one. But as a PT, we know that January, new year, new me, everyone wants to get in shape. that's what you see on social media. I think everyone can relate to feeling some kind of need to improve themselves at the beginning of a year.
Yeah.
And what happens as a PT is that we do really well for those first 3 months of the year, January, February, March. Summer comes and then people tend to drop off. They tend to go away, go on holiday, enjoy themselves. They've built the body they want, and then they don't come back for a few months. Now, as a PT, that's awful on our financials. And obviously, just like any job, you need to earn money so you can survive. And so that's probably the biggest difficulty with PT, is that it is very seasonal. And then you start having to think, right, I've got to think of this as a business. I've got to be like, right, I've got to save money in the good times, and I've got to put it towards the times where I'm not so good. Maybe my lead gen strategy has to change throughout the year. Maybe January, February, March is hot time. I go out there and I just get the people in. I start helping them. And then maybe summertime is where you start nurturing leads for later in the year. But it is one of the hardest careers, honestly. I've done it pretty much my whole adult life, so I don't know much else. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Tough gig. How about you, Dan?
It's seasonal, and to be honest, I think I'd argue I'm still a new PT in the industry. Even with 5 years, I don't feel like I'm anywhere near, being that kind of person to be completely advising other personal trainers. I'm still discovering a lot about myself, and it is tough because I think in the first 2-3 years, and I'm very open about this, the only reason I survived is because my family helped me. And it's not that my family are the wealthiest people in the world, and they won't mind me saying that, but they know that there's a return there. They know the effort that I'm going to put in will give a return to them in the future, and they know what I'm doing, and I do it from the kindness of my heart. I do say this to my clients a lot of the time, and there might be people listening like, poppycock, but I do what I do because I want to help people. I have to put a financial measure in there, otherwise I can't live in this world. It's just not going to happen. But if I could do it for free, I'd do it for free, because it's a driving force that pulls you on when you're being a personal trainer.
I can definitely tell you guys are so passionate about what I can't see you guys doing anything else. I mean, you will go on to do other great things, no doubt.
Mate,
but
I'll tell you something. Me and Dan, we've both lost relationships because of this job.
Yeah, true.
And I'm not even joking. I'm saying, like, let's say when your income is not covering the bills and your girlfriend is saying to you, right, this has been happening for too long now. Like, something has to change. That is the most traumatizing thing, especially if you're in the low season. And you know that you're not going to get anyone through in the next couple of months. It's traumatizing. And imagine that each year, just playing out a year and year and year. It gets dark. But then you find a way to strengthen yourself to the point where you can then deal with this going forward.
Pushing through.
Yeah.
I think we've got to get you guys into the studio again, because we're only just scratching the surface on this. And I've loved hearing about the journey so far with building up this podcast. I think it's exciting. It's going to be an exciting year for you guys. We're nearly out of time, but before we do, have you got any advice for anybody that might be wanting to get into the fitness industry, or maybe they want to start their own podcast? What would you say to somebody?
I mean, an answer to both those things in general is obviously you've just got to start. Like, you can't get out of your head and just start. Like, start throwing reps out. Just like you're in the gym doing reps on a barbell, you need to start putting reps in. You cannot think your way in the way to get what you want to get, if that makes sense. Too many people overthink it. Too many people are neurotic and overthinking and worrying about what's going to happen. But as soon as you take that first step forward, you'll realize it's not as scary as you first thought.
For sure. How about you, Dan? Anything?
I agree with Nick, and you have to put your foot in the water, dip your toe in the water, and see if it's for you to start with. And I think a lot of people make mistakes in any industry. They literally just go straight in there head first and do as much as they can. And I'd argue, go in there with a plan, because what you don't measure at the beginning can never get managed. And it's just it can become an absolute nightmare.
I love that. Well, look, guys, we're pretty much out of time. I've loved being in the studio with you guys. I would recommend anyone head on over to Spotify, look for PerformWell, YouTube as well for the videos. Check out the podcast. You will not be disappointed. Guys, thank you so much for coming into the studio today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.